You are with World News Today from BBC World. I'm George Alagiah. Now, let's say you're going on the adventure of a lifetime, a journey around the world in 80 days. So you take pictures you'll want to treasure forever, maybe spectacular scenery or major landmarks, but photos of the contents of people's handbags? Well, that's precisely what Will Baxter did during his trip, and he joins us now to tell us why. So, around the world in 80 days, looking at people's handbags rather curiously, what did you learn in these different countries?
Well, I travelled around the world in 80 days, and I used the analogy of sort of meeting people and photographing their handbags as an icebreaker. And I learnt that a lot of Americans carry a lot of pills, sort of supplements. Australians carry a lot of cultural things like flyers to festivals, movies and things like that.
Okay.
And then in India, a lot of prayer cards.
Right. So there are definite differences to what we carry. I just want to try and look at some of the pictures and if you can talk me through them. In Singapore, you photographed a man, didn't you? What did you learn there?
Well, the man I photographed in Singapore was actually a salesman of mobile phones that cost upwards of sort of £3,000. And so on the outside, he was a very bubbly character. Fantastic to me.
Is this the guy we're looking at now?
That's right. That's Alex. And he has a lot of sort of credit cards, and he again has prayer cards. But after the icebreaker, you get to know more about him and the person. Right.
I see you've got this. You also photographed a woman in Goa, and I'm rather suspicious that there are lots of attractive women actually in this thing.
Well, I was single, travelling around the world, and I'm trying to publish this book. And it did work as quite a good chat-up line to...
Quite a good chat-up line,
Quite a good chat-up line, yeah.
I didn't know we were publicising chat-up lines on World News Today. But OK, so there was a woman in Goa. What did you learn from her in India?
Well, she's very creative. She's got a lot of bangles and very free. She actually went off to Goa for 3 months just to sit on the beach and relax and get away from life. And her best friend was a bunch of dogs.
Okay. Now, interestingly, you say that older people tended to have less in their handbags or bags. What was that about?
I found that the older people were, the more content with their lives they were, and the younger people had more in their bags because they had to be more prepared and they were more ambitious for what would happen in the future.
Okay, and what about, you got, I think, a farmer, wasn't he, in New Zealand with his tractor? There you go. He looks a very happy man. It has to be said, he's got an iPod or something in his bag.
That's not an iPod. Do you remember Walkmans?
Oh, okay, all right.
You don't look quite old enough to remember Walkmans. But he's listening to U2 on the thing there. And I approached him and photographed him even before I chatted to him. So he was so kind of happy with himself. And he just has an apple and a little Joey pouch. Right. And the whole trip for me, I mean, I spoke about it at the TNT Travel Show a couple of days ago, but I learned all these lessons as I met the people, and it actually changed me, and I'm living now the promises that I gave myself when I was traveling.
Really? I mean, you think the experience has turned out with a new Will, not just somebody, you know, who had a good trip?
I had a great trip, but I sold my sports car, I bought a hybrid, I renamed my company after myself to take full responsibility for my actions. And I also, fortunate enough, I have a product that I sell that I now have ethically assembled by disabled people.
Okay, so I just want to show our audiences around the world in 80 handbags. That's a start of what you hoping is going to be a fully published project.
Yeah, I'm looking for a publisher, George.
All right. Well, Baxter, thank you. Plenty of plugs on World News Today. That is all from World News Today. Back for an hour of news and analysis at the same time tomorrow. The latest news from BBC World in a few minutes. On the day that Britain is bracing itself for storms and floods, as strong winds are battering the country's western coast. Winds of up to 125 kilometres an hour have already knocked down a number of trees across the counties of Devon and Dorset in the west of the country. The worst of the storm is predicted to coincide with high tides throughout the next couple of hours. But from me, George Alagiah, till tomorrow, same time, same place, goodbye and stay well.